Call the meeting in order. Montreal Council and your committee meeting Tuesday, December 10th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. That's our Montreal Municipal Building. I'll ask for a recording. I'll call for a mover for approval of the agenda. Deputy Mayor Mawhinney, seconder. Councillor Daw. Questions? All in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. We have a presentation today. Our good friend Evan Pemberton is here from the Colors Group. So guess what, Evan? Floor is yours.
I know, I was talking to, I sent a message to John earlier, and he was like, oh, no, you're gonna be second. I was like, oh, that's great, I get to hear somebody else, and then I show up, and they're like, no, you're first. Before I start, so thank you everybody for having me once again. I get it that you guys don't wanna take a lot of time to go through this, so I'll do my best to go through this quickly. I just wanna say thank you, this is John, you put these up. Great idea. This means that half my presentation is basically already done. So if you guys have any questions about these, we can talk about them once I'm done. So some people have already been asking me some questions and stuff like that, but I can walk you through anything you want if that's what you'd like. Before I get started, is there any questions? Anybody want? Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Richard. I just have one question. It's probably something very silly, but I'm gonna ask it. Why does it have to be a flat roof?
Doesn't.
Okay, so this is a flat roof just as,
Yeah,
Take a look
this is,
at.
yeah, this is just something to get us talking about this.
okay,
Yeah, this does not have to be what the end solution is gonna be. Yeah.
I realized that, but then I thought, but it's a flat roof. So I thought there might be a purpose to it.
Yeah, you know, it probably isn't flat.
Yeah.
It probably just looks flat.
It'd be
Yeah.
like a shed roof.
Yeah, there's probably gonna be a bit of a pitch on it, like.
I just thought it was snow right over there.
Well, yeah, but yeah, that's, definitely something that we can talk about.
Start over.
So, yeah. Make sure I get this thing. Okay, so, really, all I wanna do today is just kind of give you guys an update on how things are going, where we're at, where we see the next, year or so, for our next steps. No decisions are required today. This is just an information session. So please, if you do have questions, bring them forward and we can have a quick chat. So don't be afraid of the dollar values. You guys hear that? Don't get scared. So it's a little agenda. Like I said, I'll do my best to go through this quickly. I don't want to belabor this topic too much. And like I could say, there's a bunch of pictures which are already out of the bag, so not a big of a there. So as you guys know, we're building a big facility. We're going to get into a little bit the right sizing that we went through, and we're hoping that when we talk a little more into the weeds of the costs, you guys will see how things sort of panned out with that. The original project delivery method was design build, and what we learned over the last half year is that it's not a good idea to go for funding with design build because you don't have enough information for people. So we are going to be transitioning the project to a design bid build, which will allow us to go through a detailed design process where we can then not only give you guys more control over the design, but also have design related information that we can put into funding applications, which to this point, we do not have any funding application money. So this was a big deal for us. And if you have any questions related to this transition, just let us know or let me know and I can speak to any one of these topics. So the timeline, as you see, we're finishing up 2024. We are in the process of finalizing the contract with the bridging consultants. We will be putting an RFP out for prime design consultant services in the next couple of months. Well, I'd say in the next 6 weeks. We would like to put you guys in a position where, like I said, you have more control over the different stages of design. So as we talked with John, your typical design bid build, there's let's say about 4 stages in there. You don't have to do it all in one fell swoop. You can do one stage, let's call it schematic design development, and you can stop and you can reassess. Do we have enough money to proceed to the next stage? The answer is yes. Okay, we proceed to the next stage. Again, giving you guys more control, more understanding. So that's again why we transitioned to design and build. We will be looking to demo the school within the next, well, at least start the process of the demolition of the school in the next few months. So that is on our list of things to do within the next year. And the goal, as it still stands, is we would like to see shovels in the ground for May 2026. And that's currently what we're working towards in May 2026 to probably sometime in 2028, that'll be the construction period. And yeah, that's kind of how we see it going. So, preliminary drawings and renderings, yeah, already on your walls. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, can you just go back to the timeline
Yeah,
issue?
sure.
And this is my, like when I see, like every time I see cost estimate, which is great. I like that there's benchmarks by which we can continually evaluate. But one of the questions I have, it may not be for you, it may be for Mr. Jackson, is simply the process by which we engage the community. And I know that there have been public consultations or maybe focus groups to be able to give you information. But I'm wondering if what point does the average citizen get the opportunity to say, you know, like to be able to get the information and say, okay, you know, I see this is the service, this is the building that's going to be built, and here's some of the questions I may have, or here's some of the questions I have on the cost or whatever it be. When are those benchmarks by which they will be engaged and have opportunity to ask those questions?
Yeah, I mean, your worship, from my point of view, that's coming in that schematic design phase where the first hurdle is we show you the concept. We need to get on board with the concept because there's no point in us trying to go out to the public if you don't like the concept. So once we pass through that hurdle, then certainly over the schematic design phase, we would start to engage the community and other interested partners in our concept and pick them up there.
Yeah, and one of the benefits, or another one of the benefits of going the design bid build route is that you can act like this is just imagery, right? This is something to get us information into applications, discussions with government, all these funding related aspects. We want this information to start getting out there. How the building is actually going to look and the minute details of, like, say, the change rooms, right? Like these things, like they can be vetted out, right? Like it doesn't, this may not, this probably won't be exactly what the building ends up being like, right? But we need it, we all need it. Yeah.
Sounds great. Thank you, worship. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, did we not start out with a design build?
Yeah.
We started out with design build, and now we switched to design bid build. How much have we already spent on the design build process before now we're making a switch for design bid build?
Your worship, we probably about, I'll say, couple $100,000, but it's the same money we would spend on a design bid build as well. So The
We're
two.
not double paying for something?
No, we would have to do this in either way we went. So we knew there was a point where we had to stop and make a decision because we either had to take fork left or fork right, where we would be spending unnecessary money, if you will. So that's why we decided, okay, we're gonna go the design bid build method because of these, things of more information required, but we would have spent this money either way, to get to the point we're at now.
So this is the site layout. Again, don't get too wrapped up in how this is presented. It's just to give you an idea. And I like to refer to it as a box inside of a box. You get to see kind of how big the building is gonna be with respect to how big the property is. And we've got some parking there to kind of again illustrate how much of that's gonna be on the site. It's really just to give you a feel for the sheer scale of something of this nature. Oh, yeah, and it doesn't have to necessarily be oriented this way, like the entranceway doesn't necessarily have to be pointed towards Huron and that side of Hubbard Street. It can be oriented differently. This is just how the architect basically was showing us like an option for how this can sit on the site. And as you've seen on the wall, the rink is at the top of the picture in blue. You've got your gym, you've got your multi-purpose space, green there in the front. And then your gym is in yellow, your library is in purple, and then your clinic is in pink at the back.
Where's the walking trail?
Oh, it's the second floor.
Oh, second floor.
Yeah, so it's the second floor of the rink.
Okay.
Yep, and that was something that was explicitly discussed and, yeah, it's an important part of this process, yes.
Big one.
Yeah, and this is just, the same imagery without the colors, a little more zoomed in. And then these are the renderings, as you see on the wall here as well. Again, it's not necessarily gonna look like this. This is just, something for us to get our heads around what that would look like. Now, our favorite topic. So, we've kind of broken out funding in three, let's call it three buckets. We've got our funding applications, which depending on what applications are available and, which ones might pop up over the next couple of years. There could be anywhere from $10 to $50 million available, depending on what's open and what's not. And I reference the 50 million because the GICB application has that opportunity in it. However, GICB is closed for this year and I'm not saying that this is what's gonna happen. I'm just kind of saying what could happen. There is a lot of interest in that program and what they've seen and they've discussed with us is there's been an increase, not just in interest, but in the level of detail that's being provided as part of these applications. So when we were discussing our potential application for GICB, it became very clear that with a design build approach, we essentially would not even be looked at. There were so many that were going in that were already designed and were like literally shovels in the ground ready. And those are the types of ones that they've got the detail that they want, they've got all the information that GICB wants. And again, that was another push for us to move away from design build into design bid build to be able to get that information and have it ready for, when if the GICB opens again, we'll be right in the queue and ready to go with an application. We're seeing similar things on other applications. The Green Municipal Fund for the Sustainable Municipal Building, that one doesn't require as much detail or information. So this is one where there's 10 million that's available in a variety of funding streams for that one. So that's one of the ones that we're currently involved in. And we should find out we're hoping within the next 6 to 8 months, whether we get any funding from that application. So the funding applications is one strategy. The other strategy is the joint agreement or the discussions with the province and the federal government on the, what do you call it, the bilateral? Is that the a third?
Yeah.
So that would be the second funding strategy, and the third is the fundraising, which is not really the biggest pot of money, but it is still an amount of money, like when we were talking with our colleagues over at the Mariner Center in Yarmouth. They've done very, very well in raising fundraising money, and I don't want to tell you how much it is because I don't want you to think that that's what's going to happen here. But they did very well, and they had a very good approach. They set up a strong team, and when we were talking with them, it was very clear that team has worked very hard over a long period of time to secure a significant amount of money for that project. And yeah, and that conversation has left a bit of a lasting effect on everybody who was in the call from our side. So when you think about these 3 buckets of money, the largest contributor is going to be the joint agreement in reality, right? So when we go to government, whether it's the feds or the province, we want to be going for 67% of the highest number, right? So we're kind of aiming as high as we possibly can, and you're gonna kind of see that in what I've presented. I haven't highlighted the highest number, it's kind of in small writing at the bottom. But the goal would be to have that number and come in under it, right? Because then if that's the case, if you're getting 67% of whatever number, and let's say that 67% ends up covering some of your stuff now because you've asked for more than you actually could possibly need, right? So that's been my position since I came on, is I'm not afraid of throwing around the big number because I want you guys to use that big number to get as much money as you possibly can, right? So that's.
Thank you, Worship. I understand, and I just didn't know, I guess I have never had to do any of these applications myself, so I guess I don't understand. So when you get your funding is released pending your application number and not actual costs. So what I'm saying is let's say we say, oh, we think it's gonna be 100 and, whatever, pick a number, and it comes in 10 million less. Do we not get a third based on the actual cost spent
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
and not the application?
Not the application.
Because otherwise they're paying more than a third.
Okay,
I guess I could explain it too, is you're correct, but if you get, it leaves you some wiggle room in case there's some overruns. So if you're eligible for 2/3 of $1 million.
Gotcha.
Versus 2/3 of 2 million,
Gotcha.
and you only need $1 million, you're good. But if it ends up being 1.5,
You're
You
over.
got that back.
you have to pay the full 500,000.
Right.
That makes sense. Okay, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it comes down to that.
Right.
and we've seen examples where they've gone too early and asked for too low a number.
Right.
So.
And then they run the.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And yes, and then they're finding an
They're
extra.
coming up the west when it gets over.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a bit of a scary proposition, but when you look at it from that perspective, you guys wanna we wanna build a strategy where you're asking for as much as you possibly can ask for. And if you don't do that, it makes it then difficult down the road to ask for anything else.
Right.
Because you've used your opportunity, right? And they're gonna give you that, like, assuming that they're gonna be really nice and give us that money, right? You want them giving us that money and then, oh, and they take 2 million off the top because we didn't need it. How great would that be? That would be fantastic. Instead of us trying to find another 2 million because we didn't go that extra little bit and get that extra little bit.
Council Baumeister?
Thank you, worship. One question not related to money. What's the lifespan of this building? What are we planning for? 50, 70?
That's a great question. I mean, when you build buildings today, the life is usually 40 to 50 years, right? Now, I don't want to scare you guys, but like, the reality of it is like, if you do your maintenance properly, if you look after this building, you could get 50 to 75.
No, I worked for provincial government for 42 years. I know all about not doing anything for 40 years and what that can do.
So,
So that wasn't the reason for my question, so the other question I have is this a net zero LEED certified building we're planning?
it will be, it's a zero, okay. So in order to apply for the GICB application, when the next round comes out, we need to have it's a zero carbon building.
Yeah.
So you'll see in the breakdown that I put up in the next couple of slides, there's a price tag that's associated with that. So we got the cost consultant to tell us, all right, what's the cost to this building for us to have this, right? But LEED, it's not LEED. I believe it has, it's LEED intended. It's not, it won't be the full, it won't be, which is, I feel like that's what's happening on a lot of buildings because to go LEED is so much more expensive.
So the goal is trying to be net zero though?
Yes, yeah, that's look, to go for any funding application right now, especially with the federal government, if you're not pushing that direction.
That's the reason for my question.
You're not getting anywhere in your application, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Everybody ready? So, this table is a little misleading, and I'll explain why. The original number that we were dealing with was not 106. It was kind of, I think it was around.
Probably 123.
Yeah, it was, the reason that we're showing it this way is because the actual, we had the building at 106 through the normal process of, essentially defining the owner scope requirements, right? So, when we did the right sizing was, okay, we're at 106 or 107. How much tighter can we be, right? Without compromising the essence of what it is that we're trying to build here. And this is it pared down as far as we possibly can go. So about 99,000 square feet. Now, you'll see on the far right column, that'll be the number that shows you what the cost per square foot would be,
Average.
yeah.
And each one of those has a different cost per square foot, because you'll notice right now, although we think we can get this one after we talk more about it, but clinic space is the most expensive cost per square foot, but that's considering clinic space at a more hospital-like level than what I think we need. But that being said, again, going in with the higher number is better than cutting it out now, so to speak, so, you know, it's a blend of all of those different types of construction that give you those different costs per square foot values.
Thank you, Richard. Just for comparison notes, like for example, we built a couple of large units in the last little bit, the worst part being one and the VIC being one. But what do we pay for square foot of those? If you don't mind me asking, you know?
Works department would have been a lot cheaper per
It was
square
just a
foot.
warehouse,
It was pretty hard.
it was just a warehouse, the closest would be the VIC and we're
It was,
probably 40% more than that.
yeah, super expensive.
So why is the VIC so much more expensive than say? Cause our VIC is basically a shell. There's not a lot to the VIC. And if you're saying it's 40% more, that roughly puts it, just doing some quick math, like $900 a square foot. So I don't understand how you're getting an arena and shared space that's 614 a square foot when our VIC was 850, whatever. So much more. I don't see how you're getting your prices down now. Since prices of everything has gone up so much since COVID. I'm just not.
A big part of our VIC was finishes. We went with that timber finish look and that is super, super expensive. You know, all of this, the roofing system came from out west. The wood came from out west, was manufactured in Montreal, then shipped here. And so, you know, we're talking about an arena that, you know, we could potentially buy steel girders from Stresscon or York Steel, right? So we're not, finishes matter when you talk about cost per square foot. And so while this would be a nice building because it's new, it's fresh, it's accessible, but we're not talking about putting wood girders in and those finishes are where, you know, it adds up real quick.
I mean, but we can, if you wanna.
But take that in the library.
Just out of curiosity, this is just my own being hockey, you guys know how I am with hockey. Laugh at me. So from September to October, for example, the arena lost over 8,000 square feet, whereas the gymnasium lost 100 some square feet. The library lost nothing. Multi-purpose space lost 35 square feet. Clinic loses nothing. What was cut, I guess, or was this just, I know it's your budget right sizing results. I'm just wondering what was cut for they to eliminate 8,000 square feet, 8,000.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say you're right when you look at square foot, but we've got to understand that we were talking about 80,000 square feet. So it's kind of like losing weight. When you're 600 pounds and you lose 50 pounds, that's not much. But when you're 150 pounds, you lose 50 pounds. That's a lot. So part of it, most of it was more in just some small right sizing of little areas that we knew, like hallways. You adjust a hallway by 6 inches and it's, you know, I mean, it's just small things like that we tried to really whittle it to the point where we're like, we knew we couldn't make the hallway any less than a certain width because then we got, you know, guys with machines and things like that. So that's where we really stripped it down. So we didn't lose anything. We're literally talking about narrowing stuff by 6 or 8 inches, but because it's so big, it adds up.
It was the corridor, but the rink didn't get any smaller.
Oh,
It's just a lot.
yeah, I mean, literally, there was some little corridor adjustments, small dressing room adjustments, but when you have 8 of them and you can take 10 square feet out, you know, it all adds up, but, yeah, so nothing got kind of like, okay, we're gonna remove, the you know,
The
dressing
referee's
room
office.
mate or the referee room or anything, we just try to tweak it that way.
We don't like.
Yeah.
I think you're just removing those dividers between the stalls.
Is there gonna be a stage hooked onto the gymnasium?
So I guess we'll have to say stage in terms of like viewing seats.
No,
Or we're talking
people are
stage
sitting
like
down.
theater performance.
Yeah, like if you have performances
like
or
the school
events
gyms.
or something.
Like the school gym, you
Yeah,
got a
like
gym
school
and then you
gym.
got a stage,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, there isn't. So what we've looked at is like we're looking at the arena part as a place where we'll be able to have stages be brought in and set up there. Instead of trying to build a theater,
Permanent.
if you will.
Permanent.
Cause we have some of those. I mean, OHS got a great theater, that if folks need us. It's way better than most other communities out there. I mean, so, but as far as if you wanted to have Pioneer Days inside the arena, then we can pull a stage in, set it up, you know, like going to the Aiken Center and seeing a band. That ability would be there in this facility because when we talk to the crew about, you know, making sure doors are certain wide and making sure that, you know, we can get headspace and all those things for that type of use. So we wouldn't lose that ability. It just wouldn't be built in.
So it could be portable, so you could put it in the gym for, in the wintertime when the ice is in, you could still have like bands or.
It's
or
possible,
comedian
yeah.
communities.
Yeah, you know, yeah.
So the big scary chair. This is the annual projected cost breakdown. Are there any questions?
I have a few, I think.
Sure.
Definitely.
We can dive into whatever you want.
So one thing I will say, just to ease everybody, is, and I've told the group here, is I will have a presentation next month to explain how we afford to do this in a way that doesn't bankrupt us or doesn't send our tax rates sky high. But, you know, that being said, you know, Evan's role for me was to give you the data that we have up to now, because being transparent, this isn't cheap, there's no question there, but can we make it work? Yes, we can. That's my job to sell that part, and I'll do that next month. Hopefully.
So I guess just to go over it sort of really high level, as you look at the bottom, the annual projected is what we've, and I mean, this is loosely broken out. It's obviously not gonna fall exactly like this. This year, this coming year, 2025, again, you guys have control over that number. That's just a projection that we've got. So, when I say like the town's cost is gonna be about 1.6 million, outside funding is about 3.2 million, that's what we're aiming for, right? And look, if funding doesn't arrive when we need funding, we use the different stages of design to be able to push things a little bit, so that there's a little more breathing room to give us more time for funding. Yeah, and so the goal is, like, we're not gonna go into construction without the funding. It's just not gonna happen, right? So it's given us effectively 16 months to get as much of the funding as we possibly can, to then make a decision about, are we going into construction? Do we have enough money? And then moving from there. So our real goal for the next, let's say, 12 months is to try to bring in some money. so that this first year, 2025, doesn't seem so alarming, right? Because let's say it does take 8 months, 10 months, a year to get the bilateral funding, we still need to keep this thing going, right? So that's, and I had a chat with Jackie earlier today, and we were talking about fundraising and like, all right, how are we gonna do that? And like, when does that start? So we're really pushing this, and we're aware that, the money, the necessary funding to keep this machine going is effectively what we've got going on here. So, yeah. Are there any questions? Anybody terrified?
That's what done.
Thank you, Richard. So how much of a buffer is built into that bottom one for inflation and costs rising?
So this is based on 79.4. So I'll go to the next slide. So what you see, we've broken it out into construction and then the additional costs and then the total project cost. So the total project cost that we're showing is 79.4. Very small at the bottom, which you can barely see, is 91,300,000. That's what I'm saying you need to talk to government about.
Right.
That's the number that you need to go to government with. Because we're thinking that around 10, 11 extra million is gonna give you that boost to take into consideration escalation by the time you go to construction and any other unforeseen issues that may arise between now and then as well. Just rip that Band-Aid right off.
That is kind of scary.
Go back to this. Again, I can't stress this enough, the funding is what's gonna do this, right? Your number doesn't really change that much. It's the number that you're getting given through funding. So if the number is 90, right, and you do a third, you guys need to, or let's say 33%. So your number is, what were we saying, around 25?
If it's 90 or about 30-ish.
So you guys are still in the 17.5 area, and then there is there's the funding applications, right? So let's say you guys are 18. We're pushing for funding applications, let's hope we can get anywhere from 5 to 10 there, right? And then fundraising, that's kind of a question mark, right? So then when you look at that, you're thinking, oh, okay, that's not too bad, right? So 18, let's say you get 5, 10, 20, so you've got about 2 or 3 million that you need to pull together for fundraising. So and then again, it's like, if you guys can't get there, right? We have to talk about, all right, did you get the other funding? Do you have the 60 million coming from the government to do this? And are we actually gonna need 90 million? Is it possible for us to have counted all of our chickens correctly and maybe we end up at 85, right? So this is, so again, I'm trying to sell the idea of you guys getting comfortable with a higher number so that we don't hit that number, so that we stay below it.
Thank you, Richard. Numbers, I like numbers. I deal with numbers all day long. So division by 3 is not a hard thing for me to do. I get it. But my question is what I'm not familiar with is the whole application process for grants.
Sure.
But I understand the premise of 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. I get that.
Okay.
So concentrating only on the 1/3, which would be the responsibility of the municipality. If I am understanding correctly, for the 1/3 that we are responsible for, there is also the option to apply for other things
Yep.
to help you go towards that 1/3.
Yes.
Okay, so now I understand.
Yeah.
There's also the ability to ask for sponsorships, that can go towards our 1/3.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm understanding this whole idea of whatever the 1/3 is,
Mhm.
there's the ability to bring down that responsibility of the taxpayer to fund that 1/3 through the benevolence or the generosity of donors who may contribute
Yeah.
to have their logo or their
That's
name or whatever.
That's
So,
right.
okay, I understand, thank you.
Right, and if I can add, your worship, the other thing that I'll discuss next month in greater detail is the other communities around us that need to pay. Right, we have local governance reform, and we did it for a reason. And we have pretty good data to show you that about 40% of our need comes from people who don't pay taxes in town. And that's something that we are gonna tackle. So there's another avenue that can pay for quote, our third. Because we will try to formulate agreements with our surrounding communities because they need to come to the table.
Thank you. So as a further, and I know that presentation will come in January, so I don't want to delve too much into that. But really the summation of that is whatever the 1/3, which is the responsibility of the municipality. It really, at the end of the day, is likely not going to be that full amount because we will be applying for other grants. We will be attempting to find large sponsors. We will be delving into the whole notion of regionalization and looking to collect some funding from some of those other communities which are using our facilities.
Yep.
I understand. Thank you.
No,
Thank you. Typically, how soon do you know when something has been approved? Like when you submit, they must meet at certain times, do they, to review these applications?
Okay, so for the funding applications, it's a bit of a golf show. Some of them are short, some of them are long, some of them have windows, others are wide open. Each is its own little use case. So, I can speak to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, Green Municipal Fund and the Sustainable Municipal Building. That's the one that we're currently pushing for, and we've got an application in for right now. It's 4 to 6 months for us to know if we're gonna get funded. Yeah. So, like, and that could be, anywhere from 200,000 to 10 million. So like and the GICB one is even crazier, right? The submission requirements are significantly higher. There's way more competition, but the dollar value is up to like 50 million. And so that's what it's like. If you get that, like if you manage to somehow lock in something from GICB, you guys are set. Like that's why we're not, even though there's no round that's open right now, we're gearing ourselves up for when one does. And it's like any of them that are like these windows, we see a trend that's like, they keep bringing them back because there's so much need. So we're okay, we're gonna prepare ourselves for when that one opens and we're gonna get right in there. We're gonna get right in the queue as soon as we possibly can with the best possible information that we can put in that application.
So that particular one,
Mhm.
that's part of our 1/3, or is that part of the other two pockets?
No, it's part of your 1/3.
That's right, so the other two pockets are completely independent
Yeah.
of these
So-
programs that you're talking
Yeah,
about.
so the bilateral let's say it's 60 million, right? Like, that's Fed and provincial money that you wanna just ask for.
Right,
You wanna go to them and say, we want 60 million,
right,
right?
and then that's, once
Yeah.
that's a check,
Yeah, then we
we do
go,
this for the other,
we got 30 million to make.
gotcha.
And if we can somehow, look, if you can somehow get 30 million through applications, we'll do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, I wasn't sure if those particular grants were under one of those other 2/3, but they're not, it's
Yeah.
separate from the provincial and the
Now-
federal money.
I should preface this. You'll wanna be careful Because if you do land a big one, let's say you get significant funding from GICB, you're probably gonna wanna talk to the province that's done that. Right?
Because they might change the number?
Well, because it might be fair for them to change.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how, as I'm wondering, because
Yeah.
in a direct way, they could say, you've got some of this, so I'm only gonna give you this.
Yes, but
But it
Let's
might not
cross
make a
you
difference.
know what? Let's cross that bridge when we get.
That's right, and it might not make that kind of impact. Cause along the short is we're still gonna get
Yeah,
something.
I guess the point that I'm trying to make is like, if you wanna ask for the 60, and if you don't need it, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you gotta go back, if they come to you and they're like, somehow.
10 million from the.
Yeah. Well, no, if you guys got 50 million somehow through other means, it's not fair for them to then have to give you 60 million. if-
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you wanna go back and make sure the third thing, concept is still on.
And then it's fair.
That's right.
It's
No, I get
It's
it.
like, look, you don't wanna be.
We asked 90 and we happen to get a bigger pot.
Yes.
Hypothetically, we're gonna go back to the other two partners and say, we've already got this, you only have to get.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's just good business with
I
them.
do too, yeah. I
Because
agree. I
they're,
agree.
look, they're gonna be.
That's all we wanted is the whole total, so how we get it
Yeah,
done
yeah,
as a
yeah.
team is okay.
That's
Yeah.
right, so, that's what. I want that to be our problem, but we're.
100%, that's a great problem, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say too, there are a few programs that you can't, what they'll call stack.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are some programs where they say, if you get money from this
You
program,
can't get
you
that.
can't get it from this program,
Gotcha.
and you can't use them at the
The
same
same
time.
thing, yeah.
You know,
Okay.
there is some of that, but most of the ones we're applying for, when we do the scan, we're trying to apply for ones that we know we can stack.
Add together, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, makes
Because
sense.
the reality is, yes, I mean, you could apply for 20 programs.
But if one outdoes the other, why bother?
And some of them will say, if you get money from this program, you can't stack it against another one.
Sure,
So,
yeah, and that's what, you
Oh, look at that.
know.
It's like we do.
So we were practicing, now we can ask questions. That number didn't scare me as much as, did it scare you guys? I really didn't expect less than that. I did too, I think. I do like the idea of shooting higher for the sake of the big picture. It'd be a nice scenario to be in if we didn't have to use it. But I don't think when you look at a building, like when I look at this building now, in the picture form, that number's not that bad. To look at a building like that in our town.
No, the reality is you could be looking at 100.
oh, yeah.
Well,
There's
that's
no
what I'm saying.
guarantee that the 79 becomes 90. Could be 100, 110.
Yeah,
I mean-
true, but that's where you.
I mean, look at all the headlines in the last 10 years that have said, oh yeah, this was gonna be 90 million. Oh, it was 150, sorry. I mean, I'm not trying to be a panic spreader here, but no going in, and this number, 91 may not be the high end.
Well, 91 is more than what we need anyway.
No, but I'm
Well,
just
I am
saying,
more confident with this number.
Yeah.
So our first,
I'm not afraid of,
79.
I'm not afraid of agreeing to $100 million. I'm just saying, there's a chance that it might not be 91.
yeah, and look, I'm not saying that's not correct. And I'm also not saying that I'm correct by pushing for 90 million. What I'm saying is, based on what we've been seeing, based on the arguments that we've had with the consultant's cost estimator, we put yourselves in that 90 million area. That's not what they gave us. What they gave us originally,
It's at 80.
no, it was
60 something.
It was way less. We went back and we said, no,
Oh,
this is too low.
oh, I get you.
So, it's like, look, I'm not trying to pump up how good Colliers is, but I'm telling you. I'm not gonna tell you a number that I think is bull. I'm not, I don't wanna have that conversation with him.
No, and I don't think most consultants in this business have done that in the past just to get the work. But I'm just saying that we're talking about $80 million project, 4 years from now, what's the final number gonna be?
Yeah,
So
well.
we've seen it go more than projections. That's
Yeah,
what-
so the goal is to not let it go past May of next year, May of 2026. Right? We need to get this thing going because uncertainty, it's gonna creep in and it's gonna make this more expensive. We know this, we're seeing this. I'm much more confident in this number and I'm much more confident talking to him about this number because of what we've done in the background to have that number presented. I'm not presenting you a $90 million number that was the first number across my desk from the consultants. That's not what you're getting. You're getting $10 million, $12 million above the second version that we got from our cost consultant. That's what you're getting. That's where I'm trying to put you in your thought process. I'm not coming here to talk to you about $80 million. I'm coming here to talk to you about 91.3, right? And I'm also saying, let's lock in some funding. Let's get this sorted out so that you guys have cash flow and we're not worried about the viability of this project over the next 2 years. Right?
That's fair, that's good.
Yeah, I think your worship, we've worked a lot to try to build the highest contingencies that we could because, when we've seen it and we're aware that, the longer it goes, especially post-COVID era construction, the numbers just keep inflating and inflating, so, we think we're in a good spot, provided, yes, I mean, if we don't hit that May 2026 target, do we need to reset? Yes, because then we might be at risk,
Yeah.
but we're feeling good about it right now and keeping their feet to the fire, so, that's why we want to keep the pressure on. So tonight was just to bring you up to date on that, and hopefully what we'll get come the new year is we've really got to launch into that, campaign of making people aware and getting people excited and seeing if people will open their pocketbooks and so on and so forth. But I didn't want to do that before you saw the concept because, hey, I don't want to go out there, pitch something and have you all hate it. Because that would look really bad on me. So hopefully that's where through tonight's presentation, you get to mull on that. And we'll come back with my presentation on how we do this from a numbers and cents point of view. And my hope is after that, we can really start hitting the ground with a campaign on making people aware and reaching out to our community partners and our regional partners and our local partners and really start to build a buzz, if you will.
Thank you, Worship. So just so I'm 100% clear, this is not the final plan.
Not the final plan, no.
So I would not be agreeing to those final plans right there, because there's missing some things and some things you're not right.
Yeah, no, it's most definitely, it's a concept, a high level concept, and even staff knows there's things we need to fix and move around, but we didn't want to your point about where to stop that design build money and the design build money and not spend it twice. We thought this is where you stop it because those things will refine in that design bid build process, most definitely.
So, any other questions or comments?
I'm sorry, that took us.
Well, thank you very much, Evan.
You really didn't take us only over 10.
I was hoping,
Good luck.
All right, well, thank you guys very much for your time.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
All right, we'll move down to the monthly departmental reports. We'll start with the clerk's office. Any questions or comments, council? None? Okay, we'll move to the corporate services. Any questions or comments? Okay, the Department of Engineering and Public Works, any comments or questions?
Your worship. Just actually not a comment or just a question. Was there a big water main break today? Was there water?
We had a long main break at the corner of Prestige and Prestige North and St. John Avenue. They just finished backfilling. They're open. Water is back in service.
Perfect. Yes, water in brown. Yeah, today. It was not good.
Yeah, it's not good.
It was
Just
a
around
big-
11 and by the time you get the locates, they just finished at 6.
Okay, well, thank you.
Any other questions or comments, council? Okay. We'll move on to Department of Finance. Questions or comments? Councilor Dahl?
Thank you, Worship. I'm trying to get to it real quickly. I did look at the tax pages and that. I just want to know how we are on track. Anticipate it to be in the black instead of in the red.
Yeah, we're still anticipating that, yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I think you were tipping, sorry, I was a bit slow. It was more for engineering and public works. I did just want to mention that I really, I know I appreciate and residents appreciate the work of Mr. Bass and Mr. McLaughlin getting some of the streetlights on. It's noted, even though it's taken a bit of a battle back and forth with some of the partners, it's very much appreciated.
Thank you, Your Worship. And we have a meeting set in January with NV Power to go over some of the improvements we can do on their parts and their response time and the problems we're having and all that. So I think it's January 9th.
Okay, that's great.
18th or 20th, something like that.
Super. Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. Great. Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to Department of Human Resources. Any questions or comments? Okay, we'll go to the Ormoc Fire Department. Any questions or comments?
See, sorry.
Oh,
That's
that's
to
a
send
great.
the boys out in the fire truck at Santa out on the weekend.
Yeah.
Nice day for it too, all that snowfall.
Yeah, there's no.
Right, it was like an
I heard
ambiance.
the sirens going and,
Yeah.
and I knew that what's going on, but I didn't.
And I think it was more than previous years, but I saw the amount
Yeah.
posted just before coming in.
Oh, it
It was fantastic.
It was a lot, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to the planning and compliance, department. Any questions or comments? None? Oh, Councilor Dunn?
Are we bringing a motion on Thursday for the new planning officer?
That's gonna be.
Yeah, yeah, we'll speak to
Oh, I'm
that.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, we'll move on to the Department of Recreation and Tourism. Any questions or comments? Okay. Look, there's all of that. All right. We'll move down to administration. We'll start with 5A, the 225 water and sewer rates. And John Thompson has that.
Thank you, Your Worship. As part of the 2025 water sewer operating budget, council approved a water sewer fixed rate increase to $112.50 per quarterly billing and a reduction in the water sewer consumption rate to $3.30 per cubic meter. So the rate changes for 2025 require a resolution to amend Schedule A of bylaw 537. So I've attached the revised rates as part of bylaw 537. Be looking for council to approve the rate change going forward. 2025.
How do you feel, council? Take it as we're going forward. Okay, thanks, John. We'll move to 5B, the year resolutions with John Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's December, it's that time in the fiscal year where we look at our year-end transfer resolutions that everybody's always enjoyed over the years, so this year it's down to 6, so it's not too bad, so. Because we're required that for transfers in and out of reserve funds, that we have to have a council resolution, or a resolution of council. So we wait till the end of the year and then just give you a summary here of the resolutions, and when we do the resolution, we just read the resolution and the amount, we can't specify what it's for. But the sheet I've attached is for council's awareness, so you kind of know what we're doing, what the money was for or intended for. So I can go down through them. The first one is just a $373,239 transfer from the general capital fund to the general capital reserve fund. It's just an interfund transfer to pay back an interfund loan. The second one is from the general capital reserve fund to the general capital fund. And for all of our capital projects in 2024, we had budgeted that we would take $566,973 from the general capital reserve. So this is just transferring that lump sum as per the budget. Thirdly, we do the water cost transfer. You've heard that talked about a number of times in budgets and presentations. So for 2024, the water cost transfer is $681,000. So we need a resolution to approve that transfer for the year. Number 4, have a transfer of $1,055,000 to be transferred from the general operating fund to the general operating reserve fund. And I've got a list there. This is made up of a number of things that some of the things like we budget for things and we want to expense it in the year that we budgeted. Some of the projects may not have been done, but we want to expense the money and set it aside so we have it going forward. So $1,055,000 is a big number, but if you look at the last item on the list, there's $532,000, which was leftover project contingency funds for our Ormocto Community Wellness and Recreation Center, trying to get that right. So we had budgeted $985,000 for this year for studies and different things we're going to do. So that's just to preserve that money going forward, period, to next year. Local government reform grant of $281,000. There are a number of things that we had budgeted, things that we had paid for, but then there were grants available to do with local government reform, and we received that amount of money in grants. So some of it was used to pay for things, but we still have money to set it aside in our operating reserve. Because as we have seen tonight, we've got lots of things going forward to spend money on. And also too, is what's happening is with each department, the understanding is if, you know, you can be efficient and save some money or have some unspent monies that it will be used for something in your department. So as we go down the list, clerk's office renovation, putting in $20,000 may not cost that, but it's because maybe new staffing, we need to rearrange the office, but we'd have some money for that. Emergency measures plan review, $40,000. And then in planning and compliance, they've had, you know, increase in revenue for permit revenues and things, and there's some studies going forward that need to be done. So we'll set aside money for a wetland study, $40,000, municipal plan, $65,000, office furniture for the new staff, and a subdivision bylaw review of $7,000. And then for recreation and tourism, there was an active transportation trail strategic plan that was budgeted for 2024 that hasn't happened yet. So we'll set aside that $60,000 that was budgeted. And then there was some admin money for map printing of $4,000. So that's what makes up the total of that one. The next one is resolving to transfer $589,000 from the water sewer utility operating fund to the water sewer utility operating reserve fund. Again, there's a large number there that when we budgeted for our water sewer costs from DND, we had budgeted higher than what it actually has turned out being this year. And when we were negotiating with DND for the rates for 2024, we were expecting a 15% increase in 2024, which the increase wasn't that much. It starts in 2025, so we had extra money that's budgeted there that we'll push ahead to the operating reserve so that we have that. And also with our 5-year plan, we budgeted rate increases for the next 5 years, but then after that 5th year, we were showing on our plan that rates would stay the same. We're not knowing what's going forward. So again, this will be money set aside to have over the next 5 years as we get to that point. There was also project management funds of 120,000. Some of that was used, but there's the remaining amount of 89,000 that will push to the next year to save in the reserve to be able to use for other projects in water sewer. And lastly, the 25,000 transfer is money that we transfer every year to our capital reserve fund for water tower infrastructure renewal. Is 25,000 that we've done for a number of years to put money aside for that when we have to renew the water tower. So your worship, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments, council? Council Dodd?
Thank you, Worship. So some of this is money that was budgeted and we didn't get to fulfill it and use it. So it's going to be put aside for next year. Hopefully we can get that work done on top of the existing work.
Because the thing is with these, you don't want to leave it in the operating fund to just show this surplus and then have to budget it again in another year. So if it's budgeted, expense it and then put it in the reserve, so it's there to be used for the unfinished projects or things that haven't happened yet.
I know. Okay, thanks, John. We move to 5C, the second reading of proposed bylaw 522-H, a bylaw to amend the town of Wilmot zoning bylaw. There's CAO.
Yeah, I mean, your worship, and I know Dallas is here
Oh,
to speak to a bit of it as well, because I think we have.
I can address this, so, we got through the first reading for bylaw 522-H, a bylaw to amend, the zoning bylaw would do 2 mixed-use buildings on Reston Road. That's going to PAC tomorrow night. The public hearing is then going to be Thursday. The council could do second and third reading at the December council meeting. I'd recommend you do it at the January meeting, which I can give you a report of the PAC meeting, which will be held the night before. We want to have the minutes going, and tell you what PAC's opinion was, and be able to respond to anything that comes out of the public hearing, should there be anything. Then at least you would be able to go, you could do second reading and then wait for third, or do second and third at the same time. It really doesn't matter. But I don't want you to feel pressured that you're gonna have to go right to the public hearing to make a decision that night, because really the amount of work that's gonna get done on that site between middle of December and early January is nil. So I'm just saying that there will be a public hearing prior to council meeting, that's for sure. Whether or not you want to do second and third reading, I would maybe recommend you wait till January to do your final. That way you'd have at least the benefit of having to read some reports and some minutes of the PAC to assist your decision.
I think we'd be more comfortable. Thanks, Dallas. All right, we go to 5D, the TMR radio purchase. And we got Fire Chief Jody Price.
Worship, this is the phase of the radios that we're transitioning to the new radio system, the TMR radio system. So this is one of the phases that we had budgeted for this year. So we're working with Bell, and this was the quote that they gave us. So we'd like to move forward and get these radios purchased this year before they go up in price next year. We'll be doing another phase of the project next year. Hopefully finishing it off for 2026.
So what, Fire Chief Price, when you say that, it's the beginning of the project, are there different things that you have to buy? I'm just noting that on this quote, there's 40 of this and 40 of that, so I'm assuming it's 40. Do we need more than 40, or is 40 where you started?
Yeah, no, we need more than 40, and these are a lower end radio that are being discontinued, so we're getting them at a really good price. So us and the province are buying, like the province bought, I don't know how many thousand of them, and we're buying 40 of them, so no issues with going forward for the next 10 years. the life of this TMR before the next version comes out. That we'll be able to keep them, all we gotta do is buy batteries for them. So there's no issues there. We've got a bunch of these radios now, this model being discontinued. It's go, the other model radio that we're buying next year are $7,000 per radio. And these ones are $2,800. So,
Thank you.
and these ones are not gonna be available next year. So we're getting many of these ones as we need to infill what positions we need for, the lower end positions. And then next year we'll start buying what we call a higher end radio, which are the frontline radio that the firefighters will be taking into the fires and stuff.
And will we require 40 of those as well, or?
Actually, probably, I don't know what the numbers are, Counselor, right off the top of my head, but it might even be more than that.
So then do you replace these, or do you use?
No, we use those ones, yeah. Just that I would use one of these radios. Like and if I'm on an EMO exercise, and I gotta give one to the CIO, I give him one of these radios. But the firefighter that's going into the building, he'll have a $7,000 radio.
I'm trying to wrap my head around the number of radios versus the number of firefighters, even with the volunteers.
Yeah,
It seems high.
yeah. No, that's what we need, like with.
Well, you have some on reserve for charging, like, is it a switch about or
Yeah,
something?
well, some of that, but the other thing is the fact that we don't assign everybody their own radio. So they're placed on vehicles, and we also have to give radios to people that aren't firefighters. So when I pull up to a call right now with an RCMP officer, an RCMP officer has a radio in his car, and he has a radio in one portable radio on his hip. If I wanna talk to that RCMP officer, I gotta give him one of my radios. If I wanna talk, he's not going off his radio, he's staying on his radio talking to his people. If I wanna talk to him, I gotta give him, I have drop portables, we call them, I gotta give him a portable. So if the fire chief from Maryland comes in, and I want him to talk to us, I gotta give him a portable to talk to us. Now, we've got some interoperability coming down, like, with different channels and stuff, depending on what we're doing. But, and if, like I said, if we're in an EMO exercise, and I gotta give, and public works people radios, I gotta have the radios to be able to give public works people radios, because they're not on the same radio system as us, DNR or anything like that, so.
Okay, that makes.
So we have
sense.
some redundancy that way. The other thing is, we don't know what vehicle's going out to the call. So if we're going out on an off-road rescue call, we take a different vehicle than we would be going to a structure fire or a water rescue call. So all the different vehicles have an allotment of portables on them, so that when they take you out, they've got the radios to use. So we don't have to go to one truck and grab all the radios and take it, and then the guys come back in on a call back and they get in that truck and there's no radios in it, because they're all out on the off-road rescue call. Things like that, so.
Councilor Kirkbride?
Yeah,
Thank you, Richard. So a great example would be, say, flood season. Like
Yeah.
if you had to deal with people from the works department or forest fire season, that you had to deal with department, those would be good examples, correct?
that's exactly, that'd be common drop for it. Cool. That's why there's a few actually.
Councilor
So
Murdoch?
what would be the 3 years that this project's gonna take? What would be your total radios you'll have after you invest in the 3 year?
Well, all the trucks will have a radio in them, and then we'll probably have, I don't know, probably 60 portables or something like
60,
that.
so you got 40 and then you're gonna do by the time you're done, you're looking at 60, that number that
Yeah.
plus the truck.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate the explanation of it, because once you start understanding what they're all needed for, it makes more sense as to why they're needed. I guess my question is a little bit more of a mundane one. All the equipment that they're currently using, what happens to that?
Well, a lot of it's at end of life right now anyway. We bought it a few years ago, so it's coming to end of life, and we're not gonna be using those radios. We're gonna keep them as a redundancy right now for the next couple of years till we fully move over, but when we fully move over, they will be surplus. Some of them probably gonna give some of them to the works department. When we moved off the other radio system, when we moved off a number of years ago, we donated the UHF radio system, which not many people in the province were using. We donated some of it to some of the smaller fire departments that were still on that radio system. So.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thanks, George. 5E, the Wood Street Lift Station Analyst. Thank you, Your Worship.
Your Worship, as part of the 2025 capital budget, we put some money in to replace the lift station at Wood Street. As part of that replacement, we're also looking at the option of maybe bypassing the lift station at Wass's Road by the golf club, and also the one that's behind on the walking trail behind your house. So we're looking at maybe removing those two lift stations and doing gravity feed. So as part of that, we gotta see there's two components to the project we're planning, is to replace the force main. One is removing it from in between the houses, going around and probably coming up by Hayes and Center around that area. So coming up with the force main, but also looking at the pumps and seeing if we are gonna redo these pumps, let's upgrade the pump and the pipe to see if we could potentially remove the two lift stations, so saving in repairs, electricity and all that. So as part of the project, we had to do this study, and this is what it is. Basically, CDCL is doing the study where we're gonna look at this lift station at the works department and see what we can do to optimize that lift station, because we're doing an upgrade to it and essentially removing two lift stations.
Councilor Dodd?
Hey, Brett. Humor me. It might be a silly question. Can it take all that flow? We have to put in new pipes, or is that part of the?
That's part, we have to replace the force main that exits, so you put a bigger grinder pump and bigger pipe. So right now, we're replacing the pipe with a bigger one. Now we just have to look at the pump themselves and see how bigger we have to go with the pump with the horsepower. And sometimes it's just, there's two things. There's a little bit of bigger, but it's not a bigger pump, because what you do is the sequencing is how often you start and stop. So you have more stops, less lags in between. So that way you don't have to go as a bigger pump. So that's what this will do.
So further question, if we're taking two away and keeping one, is there a potential to do the same around the town?
It depends on gravity. It just depends. This is the way it was added. Sometimes it doesn't work because of the way the system is, and gravity can't fight gravity unless you pump it.
So gravity works in our favor in this case because of that.
Yeah, no, in your worship, that it's important to tender this and spec it right, because it could save us, right? I mean, if there's the potential to remove two lift stations, that's huge.
Even one.
There, and the operation and maintenance on a lift station is just incredible, right? So gravity's free. So if we can use gravity, we would like to do that, but we want to make sure that we analyze it properly, and this will do that.
We didn't want to do just a pure replacement and then realize in a couple
After
of
that,
years,
if we did that,
you know,
yeah,
it looked pretty stupid. Right?
go back, yeah.
Not gonna do that.
I know. Woman President, Council?
Yeah.
Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. All right, 5F, the draft minutes of the 21st of November, 2024 session for you. Any errors or omissions, people give me no ASAP. And on that note, I will call for a adjournment. Councilor Kirkbride, seconder. Councilor Whalen, questions? All in favor? Contrary, motion carried.